So this is my oil and gas energy presentation. So what is oil and gas energy, or petrol and fossil fuels? So hundreds of millions of years ago, oil and natural gas were formed from dinosaurs and prehistoric plants, which is why they're called fossil fuels. Prehistoric plants and animals' remains were infused into the sea with sand and rocks. As the rocks and silt settled, layer upon layer piled up in rivers, along coastlines, and on the sea bottom, trapping out the organic materials. Without air, the organic layers can't rot away, so over a long amount of time there was increasing pressure from the water and also from temperature change. This has changed mud into rock, known as source rock, which has slowly cooked the fossil fuels and organic matter into petrol over a period of 65 million years. The petrol is held inside rocks, similar to how a sponge holds water. So, how is petrol, oil and gas found? So, throughout the early 1900s, it was just lucky if you came across oil or gas. Earlier explorers looked for oil seeps on the surface or certain types of rocks and other surface signs. Most of the oil and gas that was found was just luck. Later on, science and technology developed a lot more, which made this process a lot easier in being able to determine what lies beneath them. Geologists study rocks on the Earth's surface and underground. They make a map of the rocks where they think oil and gas might be found. Engineers use this geology map to drill a well under the Earth's surface. If successful, this well will bring a steady flow of oil and gas to the surface. After the drill rig is removed, a pump is placed on the well head. An electric motor drives a gearbox that moves a lever. The lever pushes and pulls, forcing the pump up and down, and creates a suction that draws up the oil. Usually once a company finds a legitimate spot to drill where oil and gas may be located, they then begin planning for a well. Drilling a well is very expensive, though costing most offshore services well over hundreds of $millions to drill. The most expensive oil rig is located on the Russian Pacific coast and cost $12 billion to build, which is a lot of money. So, energy transformations. There are heaps of different types of energy transformations from one energy to another. Chemical energy is created from a chemical reaction. This can be energy from thermal processes called heat energy, and energy from charged particles called electric energy. For example, when a car is started and you step on the accelerator, air gets pushed and mixed with fuel, then the spark is set, which makes an explosion and starts the engine. This shows the heat engine being transformed into kinetic energy, which makes the crankshaft spin around, which drives the wheels. Effect on climate change and the environment. There are downsides to oil and gas energy, and being bad for the environment is probably their biggest factor. While oil is being drilled from underground, oil rigs emit a lot of carbon dioxide, and the oil rigs are situated out offshore, so they are invading the natural habitat of the sea life around the machine. Also, oil rigs are known for having oil spillages every now and then. This is horrible for the environment around the oil rigs because all of the sea life that breathes in the oil will die, including the reefs. Advantages and disadvantages of oil and gas energy. So the advantages are oil and gas energy is usually cheaper than other sources of energy. Sources for chemical energy are all over the world because oil can be extracted from layers of the Earth's crust. Chemical energy can provide instant heat energy with only an igniting source and air with enough oxygen content. This is why cars can turn on pretty quickly with only a button or the turn of a key. There is a lot of power stored in high-octane fuels derived when refining oil. Because of this, cars can drive fast, with more energy being supplied to the engine. The disadvantages are oil and gas are all non-renewable. Obviously, the emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere while the energy is being harnessed, and when being used with pollution from the cars. The pollution the byproducts create when chemical energy is being created or used is also harmful for the human body sometimes. So, the largest oil reserves are per billion barrels are Saudi Arabia with 259, Canada with 175, Iran with 137, Iraq with 115, and Kuwait with 101. The largest natural gas reserves per trillion cubic feet are Russia 1,680, Iran 991, Qatar 891, Saudi Arabia 258, and the United States 237. So, evaluation. Currently, oil and gas energy is the most used energy for cars and planes, but it's not the best for the environment, and it's not renewable either. These downsides can really affect people's opinions on the energy, but although there are quite a few negatives, it is still the most common energy source for cars and planes. The energy is harmful to the environment as well, which brings the energy as a whole to a lower standard. And here's my bibliography. Thanks for listening.